Welcome to the briefing. Today, we're going to look back at a really specific day, January 8th, 2026. This was the day, this was the moment AI stopped being just a cool technology and really became the new, underlying infrastructure for the entire global economy. Let's dig in.
You know, this one quote from industry analyst just perfectly captures the shift we're talking about. AI wasn't just about conversation anymore, not just a fun tool you could chat with. It was now all about action, about reason, about getting things done in the real world.
So how did we get here, to this new AI epoch? Well, to really get it, you got to start from the ground up. I'm talking about the very foundation that makes everything else possible.
And that foundation, it's all about the hardware. We're talking about the silicon supercycle. The biggest stories from this day show this absolutely massive global expansion in the chips and data centers that are, well, the engine for this whole intelligence revolution.
First off, just look at the money involved here. $5 billion. That's the deal Applied Digital locked down to build what they were calling a new AI factory. And listen, this wasn't just another data center. No, this was a signal of the insane amount of capital you now needed just to play in this game.
At the same time, clear across the world, you have Shanghai's iLuvatar Corex. Their shares just exploded on their IPO. And this wasn't just another tech company going public. This was the market screaming its belief that China could actually build its own domestic chip-making powerhouse, totally independent of the West.
And the innovation just kept coming. Nvidia rolled out their new Vera Rubin platform at CES, and it offered 5 times better performance per dollar. That is a gigantic leap in efficiency. It suddenly made it way cheaper and faster to train the next wave of enormous AI models.
So this slide really lays out the chessboard, right? This is the global race for hardware dominance. And it's definitely not a one-horse race. You've got Nvidia leading the pack in the high-end market, of course, but then there's AMD building out the open-source backbone for everyone else. Meanwhile, in China, iLuvatar Corex is making sure they have their own computing backbone. And underneath it all, you have companies like Applied Digital actually building the physical AI factories. Everyone was carving out their own strategic slice of the pie.
Okay, so you've got the hardware foundation sorted. What's next? Well, that brings us to the agentic revolution, basically the brains of the whole operation. Let's get into how AI really developed a mind of its own.
This right here, this definition on the slide is absolutely crucial. We had officially left the era of passive tools that just spit out text. We were now talking about proactive agents, AIs that could understand a goal, figure out the steps to get there, and then just do it, all on their own. And this chart, wow, this shows you the impact. They ran a benchmark across 44 different knowledge work jobs. We're talking financial analysts, software engineers, you name it. And OpenAI's new GPT-5.2 model performed at or above the level of human experts almost 71% of the time. This wasn't about helping humans do their jobs anymore. This was about full-on automation.
And to really hammer home this new power, Disney dropped a cool $1 billion on a deal with OpenAI. They basically licensed their entire library of intellectual property, which let their video platform generate brand new content with characters from Marvel and Star Wars. This deal became the blueprint for how every major brand would start to think about their assets in this new agentic world.
Okay, so AI now has the hardware, the foundation, and it has the brains. But the next massive story from that day was about what happens when it gets a body. Physical AI was officially here, and the best place to see it all in action was the show floor at CES 2026.
So, what's the answer to that question? Well, the whole idea of a zero-labor world, which always sounded like science fiction, right? It was suddenly becoming a commercial reality, like right before our eyes. That gap between the digital world and the physical world, it was closing and closing fast.
And just look at this report from CES. These weren't clunky robots in a lab anymore. These were real products. We were seeing humanoids with autonomous reflexes, like the Tiancong Ultra running a half marathon. Robots were learning from each other in real time. And they were doing actual physical labor. Everything from running a race to, folding your laundry.
So with AI now having a mind and a body, the big inevitable question of control just exploded onto the scene, and it sparked this incredibly high-stakes global battle over the rules of the road, regulation. This slide just lays out the fundamental conflict perfectly. It shows how the world was basically splitting into two camps on how to govern this tech. On one side, you've got the US, going all in on speed and innovation, trying to win the global race. And on the other, you've got South Korea's model, which prioritized public safety and transparency above all else. These two completely different philosophies were set for a major collision.
And that's when the White House made its move. This executive order was a pretty dramatic play to centralize power. I mean, look at these steps. It was basically designed to steamroll state-level laws, think California's regulations, to create one single innovation-first policy for the whole country. This kicked off a huge legal showdown between the federal government and individual states.
So, we've covered the hardware, the brains, the body, and the rules. What does the 2026 AI Outlook really tell us? What's the big takeaway from this one single day in history?
Well, it's what this slide says. The year started not with the promise of AI, but with the proof of it. The conversation had totally shifted away from hype and toward fundamentals. Investment wasn't about flashy demos anymore. It was about the picks and shovels, the infrastructure, the agentic systems that gave you a clear, measurable return on investment. The transition was.
And that left us all with the one question that would define the new era. As AI becomes more and more autonomous, as it learns to reason, to move, and to act right alongside us, what's our next assignment? What's our next great task?